I'm joined here by Valerie Bordeau, founder of Freelance Writers Academy. Valerie, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you for inviting me and to talk about all the stuff that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us. Freelance writing has really exploded over the past decade. Hundreds of thousands of freelance writers in the world. Do you consider freelance writers and other freelancers as entrepreneurs, and if so, why?
Well, if you look at the definition of an entrepreneur, it's someone who organizes and operates a business, and they're the ones that are taking on the greater risks to do that business, and they're the people that identify a need and fill it. So by that definition, of course, a freelance writer is an entrepreneur because they are filling a need by providing material to a business, whether it's marketing, web copy, brochures, or et cetera. So businesses need those sales materials, and therefore freelance writers fill that need and hence become entrepreneurs.
Freelancing is often synonymous with low pay compared to a consultant agency or someone who has started a business around their writing. Why is freelance commonly an underpaid and underappreciated service?
Well, I'm not so sure that it's necessarily underappreciated on purpose. I think that there's some common misunderstandings that go between a business client and a freelancer. When you think about businesses, their goal is their bottom line. That's what their focus is their bottom line, their profit, their sales numbers. And so when they're hiring employees, they're paying a salary, they're paying benefits, and they get to take all of that stuff away when they hire an independent contractor who is a freelance writer. And so the freelance writer doesn't get those benefits. So they consider that since they are paying less because they don't have to pay all of that much, that they don't really take a good look at what the service that the freelance writer is providing and the value that they're going to get from those services. Because if a freelance writer writes a piece of sales copy, for example, and that they get paid $100 for that, well, that sales piece for the business owner may generate $10,000. So it's good to consider the costs, when you are a business, and actually pay more for those type of marketing services because that's where the sales come in. And so the businesses have that misconception and pay less because of that. Now, there's another thing that happens, too, when you're considering businesses that are startup businesses. Many of those businesses do not have a good marketing budget. They're running, starting from scratch, starting from zero, unless they're backed by a wealthy investor or investors, they're not going to have the money to pay a freelancer the correct amount of money for those services. So they tend to undervalue that because they just don't have the money to pay the writer to do it. Now, for the freelance writer himself, he comes in with some misconceptions as well. He's not necessarily considering what the business's marketing budget is before he even approaches. You need to research that stuff and look for those businesses that can afford your services, and you'll eliminate a lot of that undervaluing and underappreciating right away by doing the correct research.
With Freelance Writers Academy, you help freelancers earn more. What are some of the challenges that you help freelancers overcome?
Well, some of it is some of the basic skills in how to approach an editor with a pitch or a letter of introduction. But there's a bigger piece that we have a challenge with more than anything else, and that is overcoming limiting beliefs. The own writer's challenges, the own writer's blocks. We tend to get in our own way and think, well, I'm not good enough to earn this amount of money. I I'm not as skilled as someone else. I'm looking at other writers in the field, and I'm not as good as them, so I get less. Or they're looking in the wrong spots because they're too afraid to go for those bigger goals. So a lot of that is getting the writer out of his own way. And that's a lot that we do in our strategy sessions that I offer on freelancewritersacademy.com. You know, we have a mentoring session, and I walk through that with a writer, you know, if they wanted to use those services, and really develop a strategy plan that, you know, we talk about those limiting beliefs. We talk about what the writer's goals are, what they're looking for. And so we do a lot of that. And then in our membership community, the Kingdom of Paid a Lot, we also focus a lot on that. And it's so amazing because we have such a great community that they all work together and they all bond together and they all help each other pass some of those blocks. So that's what some of our biggest challenges are.
Once again, I'm here with Valerie Bordeau of Freelance Writers Academy. Now, on the other side of the coin, business owners looking for services that freelancers provide, what are your tips to finding a reliable freelancer?
Avoid looking for freelancers in content mills, freelance bidding sites like Odesk, Elance, Craigslist. You want to find quality freelancers, and so you want to post on sites that quality freelancers look at. They look at places like postblogger.com, their job board, journalismjobs.com, freelancewriting.com, and if you Google search, you'll find freelance writers generally up in the upper ranks of Google. Those are ones that usually know what they're doing, and you'll also find sites that have places where you can post job opportunities. I know Carol Tice, she has the Freelance Writers Den, and in that den she has a junk-free job board, so she posts opportunities. So if you're looking for quality writers, you know, you might want to approach maybe Carol Tice, or you might want to even approach me. I'm easy to access. You can access me by going on the site and filling out a contact form. And I post job opportunities in the Kingdom of Paid a Lot where we train writers to be quality writers. Or be a freelanceblogger.com, which is run by Sophie Lizard. She has a job board as well. So you want to look at those places that quality writers are looking at jobs for. Now, and then another piece of advice I'd give is to be ready to pay a writer well for the work that needs to be done. If you want to pay $5, for example, for a 500-word blog post or article, what you're going to end up getting is a hastily written piece of content because the writer's got to make a living, pay their bills, and so they're going to do that work as quick as possible, and they're going to do probably some shoddy work. You want a freelance writer who's going to take the time to understand you and your business's needs and provide you the best content that will pay off in the long run.
So last question here. Regardless of focus, what is your best piece of advice for a freelancer to improve their business?
And that's what I would say is focus. Get clear about your needs and goals right from the very beginning. Before you start looking for work, get clear about what are your finances, what do you need to make to earn a living, and what kind of living do you want to have in the future, and how much does that cost? Know what you're looking for. And then, write all of that stuff down, get clear about it, really say, this is what I really, really, really want. Because what happens is you're going to find out when you start looking for opportunities, you're going to be easily distracted by a bunch of things that's not going to be a good fit for you. You'll end up taking on the wrong work, or maybe too much work. So know what you need to live life the way you want to, and only say yes to those opportunities that will take you there.
That's great. Well, once again, I'd like to thank Valerie Bordeau. You can find more about Freelance Writers Academy at freelancewritersacademy.com. Valerie, thanks again for your time.